This is post game for Game 3 of the Boston Celtics versus the horrible Dallas Mavericks. Game 3 goes to the Boston Celtics, which it's 1, 2, 3 in a row, looking at now a potential sweep. Drew, looking at this game specifically, and if you want to call back to Game 2, I know we didn't do a post game on that. Looking at this game here, what are your first thoughts and reactions to the game?
First of all, before we even get started, are you sure we're live?
I am.
Because last time you did this, we weren't live.
We are live. I do see that we are live streaming on YouTube and Twitch.
All right, perfect. Now that our audience is captivated, you want my instant reaction to Game 3 here and some of Game 2?
Yep.
I was so excited in the second quarter, and then I was so excited until Luka fouled out with 4.5 minutes left. And Kyrie tried his best, but there's just not enough offensive firepower on that team for Kyrie to carry it by himself. I don't even know if there's enough offensive firepower on that team for Kyrie and Luka to win 4 games against this team with Kristaps healthy, let alone Luka fouling out early. So it's a bummer. I'm sure you're happy. You're 1 game away from a NBA Finals championship and finally having a team that's actually going to win something. So I'm sure that's exciting for you. Hopefully they lose Game 4 so they can win Game 5 in Boston, but it's probably not going to happen. But for NBA fans, this is just kind of like, it gives me vibes of 2002 when the Lakers and the Kings played in the Western Conference Finals and everybody knew that they were going to roll into the finals and smash. I think it was the 76ers that year. Everybody knew what was coming. And I just feel like we've anointed the Celtics all year, and they are now anointed. I don't know if that's the right word, but they're about to put the crown on their head. So my question for you would be, is there another team that could have made it out of the West that was going to make it any different, or we were always headed towards this?
I think a more heavily defensive team, so whether we're talking about the Nuggets or the Timberwolves, would have been a much greater challenge to us. But it being the Mavericks and being super heavy firepower and then now holding them below 100 points in multiple games, it's not that big of a deal to us, it feels like. And I don't know when we're going to sit here and admit finally, or if Luka fans and Mavs fans are just going to sit here and cope and they're going to say, oh, well, the refs and oh, well, you guys did this and you guys did that. And oh, well, Luka has no help. When are you going to actually sit there and finally admit that Luka is a problem? Yes, he's a problem offensively, 27 points, and he has 6 assists, and great. That's fantastic. Really appreciate that. He lowered his turnovers from 9 turnovers the last game to 3 turnovers this game. So congratulations. I think that's great for him. My issue with him is his lack of effort on defense. When are we going to admit, or when a Mavs fan's going to admit, and when a Luka fan's going to admit that it is an issue? You lost by 7. How many points was he directly responsible for? Not just this game, but last game too. How many times are we going to go through this? And not just that, but the last game as well, he's missing free throws. He's getting all these turnovers. Yes, all I see on Instagram and all these social media platforms is, oh, well, Luka needs help. Luka needs help. Luka needs help. Yeah, sure. Luka does need help. But when is he actually going to put in an actual effort outside of an offensive side of the court? When is he going to put any effort on the defense? Congratulations, you had a steal. He has that one every once in a blue moon, but it's about once a game. Once a game, he'll go and he'll poke the ball from behind. He'll get a steal. He does about once a game. Congratulations. That's awesome. Outside of that, he's like not paying attention. Jason Tatum had a cut right in front of him at the top of the arc, right in front of him. He's just like not looking at all. People are going right at him. It just doesn't matter. And his effort on the boards this game was piss poor. You have Drew Holiday running right behind you and grabbing the board because you just don't give a fuck. You don't care. So when are we going to admit that you don't actually care about anything else but scoring buckets? Congratulations. You're all NBA first team, and everyone wants to anoint you as the best player in the world. But then Jason Tatum gets all this hate, and he's actually putting effort in on every single piece of the court, whether it's assists, whether it's actual boards and actually going up for them, not just getting freebies that bounce to him. When are we going to actually admit that he's an actual issue? And that's not us. We know he has an issue. When is it the Mavs fans? Because I know if this video ends up getting pushed to people's algorithm, it gets pushed to Mavs fans, they're gonna get all pissed off. They're gonna be in the comments. Oh well, Luka's defensive efficiency. I don't give a fuck. I actually just fucking don't. Because if you watch the fucking game, there's an issue there. There's an issue. And offensively, he's not that goddamn efficient when you're going 1 from 7 from 3. Not that efficient. These last 2 losses can be directly put on him. Yes, I know you're putting a lot of effort in. You're not LeBron James. You're Luka. It's completely different. You're really good. You're fucking fantastic. Top 3 in the world. But let's slow our fucking roll because you can't play defense. That's an issue.
Hey, my man, he said Luka's the next James Harden. That's hey, I think we shouldn't have conversations about production in the middle of the podcast, but I think I need like admin capabilities. That way I can drag tweets into because you know how they do the Photoshops where like it'll be like Shay or it'll be Ant, and they'll do the Photoshop where he turns into like a Dragon Ball Z character and like starts cramming on people. I seen this funny ass one before we went on where they Photoshopped Luka into a traffic cone, like, and then the dudes were just running by him and he Photoshops into a traffic cone, and I'm just like, the funny man, he's already tough to watch. When he fouled out, I couldn't tell if he was screaming at the ref or if he was screaming at his bench or whatever, but he's already tough to watch with all his complaining, and then he doesn't play defense.
He turned around to the ref too, Mark Davis behind him.
Okay. And I mean, I think honestly, this is just a case of like the Mavericks probably don't have the talent to be in the finals. They just got hot at the right time. We see this in sports all the time. Last year, the Arizona Diamondbacks made it to the World Series and they got their asses stomped. It's just one of those cases where the Mavericks got hot in the playoffs at the right time. They ended up running into a juggernaut in the finals. But realistically, outside of Denver, because the other 2 teams, Oklahoma City and Minnesota, really didn't have the playoff experience. Outside of Denver, I really think this is what was going to happen no matter what. Outside of the Warriors and Steph going nuclear in the playoffs, which obviously that didn't happen. Or, I mean, the beginning of the year, we talked about this, man. Celtics might win the finals this year, and here we are. We're 12, 36, 48. How many minutes are in a basketball game? We're 48 minutes away from them being NBA Finals champions. So,
yeah, it's talking about Luka being hard to watch. I mean, dude, I'm sitting here like screaming at you. You said it. This man's the next James Harden. We changed the rules in the NBA to get away from that. There's this box score that's starting to like recreep back up from a couple of years ago when it was Russ and Harden on the same team. And it's like Harden went something like 11 for 37, but somehow had 50 points because of all of the free throws that he had. Like, we changed the rules for this specifically. And it's so hard to watch him. And some people are like, oh, it's a masterclass of what he's doing offensively. And he baits you into doing it. No, it's fucking annoying because if he gets in front of you, or even if he doesn't get in front of you, you still have the defender in front of him. He's gonna he tries to initiate the contact. If he doesn't initially get it, and he does a fadeaway mid range, and it's really good. But if he initiates the contact and goes up for it, it's like he expects a foul. You're initiating that contact every single time, and you can't expect these fouls when you're sitting there literally shoving off of dudes. You're shoving off of them. And they even made the commentary on the TV. They were like, hey, this is the playoffs. You're not going to get that shove off Jason Tatum. You're not going to get that shove off, Luka doing it too. You're not going to get that call. I know you're trying to get it, but you won't. Luka should not be getting the calls where he's initiating those contacts. And he does constantly. The playoffs cater to Luka. If you want to make it to where you can't do anything about his push-offs, but you can't stand there and actually play defense on him, he just caters to him. I'm fucking tired of it. I'm tired of seeing him go and shoot all these free throws for no goddamn reason. It's super frustrating to sit there and watch. And it's every possession. And then, someone else comes down the court for the Celtics and they try to get a call and we just won't get it. Even though Luka's doing the exact same thing. Jason Tatum goes up for a dunk, should be an and one because they smacked the fuck out of his arm. It doesn't matter. They're not going to call it. Why? Why aren't you calling it? If that's Luka getting smacked, he would immediately fall to the ground and throw his hands up, even though he could have landed on his feet perfectly fine. He just sells the fuck out of it. And it's so difficult to watch.
You're up 3-0, right?
But it's so hard to watch the games. It's so
and are we gonna rename this the Celtics Stan podcast here?
We might have to, yeah.
Can we talk about? Yeah, Kyrie's good. Can we talk about Jason Tatum being the second best player on his team?
Like for this series, sure. Yeah,
I mean,
this series, yeah, absolutely.
JB, he does absolutely nothing in the first half. This is how I knew this game was over, is because Jaylen Brown didn't do anything in the first half, and I think the Celtics were down 1 point at halftime. Mm-hmm. I was like, that's not good. He hasn't brought anything to the table, and they're only losing by 1. That's not good at all. Kyrie and Luka had like 36 of their 51 points or something like that. I'm like, this game's probably over in the third quarter, and they brought it back and they made it competitive for a second there in the fourth, but Jaylen Brown 30 points in the game. Tatum 31. So shout out to JB. He's got that Finals MVP locked up, it seems.
Maybe, the co-MVP thing is the Finals favorites right now, especially if you look at the numbers and you stack them up next to each other. And Kristaps goes out. He's not going to play for the rest of the finals, it seems like, with an injury that only 26 people in the entire world have ever had. And Jason Tatum steps it up. He goes and he increases his points. Does he lose some of his other statistics? He drops off in rebounds a little bit and assists a little bit, but he provides the scoring opportunity that's needed. Like he's being a little bit more aggressive in this game than he was in the previous games because he didn't have to. You saw in the last 2 games, he's running around and he'll drive in and he's looking to kick out somewhere because he has 2 people on him, whoever is playing zone inside the paint and whoever is on him directly. And he's looking to kick it out somewhere else. So he's looking to do that constantly. This game is a little bit different. He's looking to Euro. He's looking to stop and do a mid-range. He's looking to actually do a sidestep 3. He's looking to do a step back. So he's doing a little bit more offensively because he has to. And that's what I can appreciate. Like, yes, Jaylen Brown did fantastic this game as he has the last 3 games, but Jason Tatum's being a little bit understated of how well he's been playing as well. Jaylen Brown probably should win Finals MVP, but it wouldn't be surprising if it was co-Finals MVP at this point because of the statistics and because of what both players have done.
Jaylen was a +13. Tatum was a -4.
Yep. And it's funny because Jason's been like, he's been positive in the plus minus in every single game. In this game where he's had to be more offensively forward, he's gone negative in his efficiency. So it's just something funny to look at. The other thing for Celtics fans to kind of look at too is how much Xavier Tillman played. He ended up playing 11 minutes. He ended up playing a lot of center. No Luke Kornet. So that was a little surprising to me. I thought we'd see Luke Kornet a little bit more. But I think for the pure fact that Xavier Tillman has the ability to shoot threes and he only shot 1, maybe brings that out a little bit. But honestly, with Luke, he brings a little bit more of the rebounding proficiency to the team, and I would have liked to see him out there. But I like Luke Kornet a lot, so maybe that's my bias coming into play. I'm not a huge Tillman guy, but he went out there and he played well, so I'm curious to see how Joe Mazzulla is going to adjust going into the next game. Sam Hauser playing fantastic. He's played fantastic defense in all 3 games up at this point, scoring 9 points, most of those points coming in maybe all those points coming in the first half. So,
bro, Hauser, man, the dude played 14 minutes and he was a +16. I'm not a big plus or minus guy, but when you're only on the floor for 14 minutes, and this is when this was in the second quarter when the Mavs were playing really well, and it just seemed like every time they got on a run, he hit a 3. He's a +16 when the Mavs were pushing. That's fantastic production from your bench. Yeah. And then Tillman's a +9. The Mavericks haven't broken 100 points in this series. I think they got like 89 and 99 and 97 or something like that. The Celtics have been over 100 points. It's really, for as close as the final scores seem, this series has not been close in a lot of ways. And it's just, it makes you kind of think, like, I think GMs in the NBA right now got to be thinking, we have to do something big time this offseason if we're going to compete with this team, because I don't have the Celtics contract statuses or anything pulled up in front of me, but how are you going to compete with this team next year when they're, that's just another year of growth for Tatum and Brown, who is stepping up, the Dame Lillard and Giannis thing. Obviously there was injuries there, but that didn't seem like it was, going to click. And, I guess the 76ers are the big wild card because they have roughly $1.9 billion in cap space and they can go sign every everybody, but there's no guarantee that that's going to gel. So I I mean, 12 months from now, we're going to be sitting here talking about the Celtics back to back because, I mean, it's a long way to go, but who has the talent to compete with this team in the NBA right now besides the Kings?
Well, before pushing too far up, is there anything that Dallas could really do? I mean, looking at the last 3 games, especially, is there anything Dallas could even do to make an adjustment to make a significant run at next game or the next couple of games? Like, what has to be done from now until Friday? That's really the real question to me, because everything the Celtics have done is, remember, you and I talked about, how to stop the Dallas Mavericks, and I talked about their switching and how we switch constantly and we have the personnel to do it. And I think you asked me the question is why can you guys stop them if nobody else has been able to do it? And I said, it's their personnel. They have the people to actually do it. Tatum, Brown, Holiday, White, shout out Big Al. Al's been out there doing work. He's been playing fantastic defense. It doesn't matter if he gets cooked up because he'll be right there in your face still, and he wants it so bad, and I want it for him really bad. So everyone's just been playing really well. They've stopped all the lobs. They've had, you can count on one hand how many lobs they've had this entire series. I think
that alley-oop, taking that away has been big.
So, taking all that stuff away, not allowing Luka to get in front of the defender, and not allowing him to draw so many fouls has been huge. So
to answer your question, it's just, I mean, Kyrie went for 35 tonight. Luka went for 27. They both played, offensively well. They did what they do, and it just wasn't even close to enough. We talked before the series started. It was really going to take PJ Washington going to a all-star level of play for them to have a chance in this series, or a major injury on the Celtics part. But the major injury on the Celtics part happened, and it didn't matter. Porzingis, it's just, man, it just sucks for that dude. I feel for him terribly because he's just had a tough run with injuries lately. But I don't know, outside of them finding, a time machine and trading for somebody at the deadline. But the thing about the Mavs is this was not a team that was expected to make a finals run, so they didn't pull the trigger on some of those moves that you would have seen a team do at the deadline, and there's just I'm not exactly sure what this team needs outside of, I think you and me threw around the Jeremy Grant type of player at the 4, which would help them a little bit, but they're just not deep enough. It is what it is. There's not enough talent on this Dallas team to overcome 5 to 6 players on the Celtics team that can go for 30 any given night.
And it's like what you said, it's like almost what the piece that they're missing. When we talked game 1, feels like the piece that they're missing that they could really use right now is
Porzingis.
Is a Porzingis, a Tingus Pingus, and they just don't have that right now. Gafford's only played 16 minutes because he's not providing too much on the offensive side. Derek Jones Jr., fantastic wing defender, but he's not providing a lot on the offensive side of the ball, so you can't bring him in for too much. Tim Hardaway played a shit ton of minutes. He played 19 minutes and scored a whopping 0. So it's push and pull. So you want the fantastic wing to be out there for defense and be able to maybe score somewhere around 10 to 11 points, or do you want the guy who's going to go up there for 19 and go 0 for 5, 0 for 5, and 0 for 3 for 3 and do absolutely nothing. So and then on the bench side of it, you have Derek Lively, who is, again, great defensive guy, dunks the ball really well. You already have that in Gafford, so he comes in perfectly fine. But you need that scoring center because Derek Jones Jr. is great defensive wing. You should leave him there. PJ Washington, I think, is the definite power forward and great 3-point shooter, and he's that tough mentality. Same thing with Gafford, but you need something else there.
Can you see the comments on your screen, or do you have to click onto something else?
For what?
The YouTube comments.
I have to click.
Do you have to? How many did you say? How many people did you say had the injury that Porzingis had?
It's 26 people or something like that. It's not a lot. Yeah.
Your cousin said he was going to go D1, but he got the same injury as Porzingis. I always hear on the podcast that I listen to, like the host will say something, waiting for the co-host to pick something up. The co-host will be like, "Oh, sorry, I was reading the comments," and I totally get that because the first time doing this with two screens and I can actually pay attention to what's going on over there, and it's pretty funny. And it's only two guys. Imagine if we had like 200, that would be I would be lost in the sauce for sure.
Yeah, let's see what we got. Mavs in 9, Mavs in 7, lackluster finals.
It is a lackluster finals. It may not be for Boston Celtics fans, but it's a bummer.
I'm begging you, don't give it to Go MVP. Start Lively. I mean, Start Lively is interesting. It's an interesting conversation to have at this point. I mean, he's playing pretty similar minutes, if not more minutes than Gafford at this point. So you might as well switch it up. You're getting to the point where you need to you need to do something. But
you could start Lively if you want, but they're just going to hunt him, and he'll have 3 fouls in the first quarter.
That's he's so young, and he bases everything off of his emotions, and he's physical, which is great, but he's too physical on the point where like he's purposely doing things just to be an asshole about it. So
yeah, I mean, he had 0 fouls in 30 minutes tonight, which is very impressive for him at his age. But if he starts and that's like, I mean, what are we talking about? Lively starting, that's going to overcome the Celtics advantage here. Like, yeah. And what's crazy is, Drew Holiday, Derek White, like they haven't even had like a signature like moment in the finals yet. And it doesn't matter, Al Horford hasn't had a signature. I mean, they're all playing well, don't get me wrong, but Horford hasn't had that game where he goes nuts. Drew Holiday hasn't had that game where he goes absolute bonkers, and they're still like, it's like coasting, I feel like Tatum and Brown could sit down the rest of the series and the Celtics could still win one more game with Tatum and Brown not playing.
Yeah, we should just make it entertaining. Do that, and let's just go to Game 7.
Have you seen the movie? Glory Road?
No.
All right, so it's if I got my movies right, this coach, he's a girls basketball coach, and he goes down in some New Mexico team, and he recruits a bunch of black players to the team, and everybody's freaking out. And in the NCAA championship game, he's playing against Rupp, and he decides to not play any of his white players, and it's the first time in like college history that an all black starting 5 starts and they end up winning the game. I think the Celtics should start all their white players and they'll still beat the Mavericks. Like, I think that would be awesome. Like all right, we're going to take the least athletic guys on the roster and we're still going to run them out. We're going to beat the Mavs. And they can play the whole 3-point. They can put Pritchard at the center. That'll be good. Hauser, he could play point guard. And, anyways, the whole point of this is I don't think it really matters what the Mavs are going to do. I think the Celtics have this locked up, and I mean, shout out to you finally seeing a team win something for once.
Yep, just have to live in despair for the rest of my sports life. Besides that, Drew, we will not be seeing the audience for Friday night. I will be out of town, but if we do win between now and next week's episode, we will have to get that reaction at that point. So anything else to say to the people?
I don't, sucks the news about Jerry West. That news sucks. He's literally the logo. I'm sure 100 different people have put it more elegantly than I can. So I'll leave it at that. Bob Myers, I hate his hair. Did you watch any of the pregame or the halftime or the postgame or anything? Yeah,
I mute all that shit.
They got Wilbon up there talking to Myers, and like Paul George is sitting there and he like contributes absolutely nothing. So it's like he's playing in the playoffs, just doing absolutely nothing. So that was cool for them to treat us to that. They had Adam Silver on before the game talking about relocation or expansions and things like that. And they asked him, what are you going to do to get the All-Star game competitive? And he was basically like, it ain't never going to be competitive. They don't care. The regular season's too important. So, yeah, I mean, What's next? We were hoping this finals was going to get us to NBA free agency. It's going to be a bleak June at this point.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a little bit of a low time before that happens, but we'll figure something out. We always do. Besides that, Drew, let's go ahead and sign off, and we will see everybody next week. Later.